How's it going, super friends? Welcome back to my channel. Hey, remember how a long time ago I made that post on social media saying I'm going to be reviewing the Green Arrow and Speedy Deluxe Silver Age 2-pack next? Well, here it is, better late than never. Finally, the DC Direct Silver Age Green Arrow and Speedy 2-pack. I don't care what anyone says. This window box packaging that DC Direct used to use for their deluxe action figure series is, in my opinion, amongst some of the very best that we've ever seen for the collector market. Here's the top of the box with the Green Arrow Speedy Deluxe action figure set logo, both figures on the side. Same sort of thing on this side as well, just a bit smaller. And here as well. Okay, we're getting repetitive. Let's look at the back. The back of the packaging for this is also really cool looking. On the right-hand side of the box, you can see some of the deluxe action figure packages that they'd already previously released as well, minus the Bat family ones. And the rest of the packaging is actually dedicated to two more images of the figures, some more of the logos, and then a lengthy write-up, which if you'd like, you can pause the video yourself to read it. Alright, now here's what you get. And I want to point out that you can see that not only do we have all of the items and accessories that come in the package, so it's a complete package, none of the items have ever been removed from the packaging on account of the fact that you can actually see all of the twist ties are still in place. With this 2-pack, you can see that there is absolutely no shortage of accessories. You get a little tiny golden arrow car, and you also get the Arrowplane. You also get 2 bows, 1 brown and 1 yellow, as well as 4 trick arrows. The arrow car is fairly simple in design, nothing special going on there. There is a little bit of detail work in the cockpit, but it's just kind of a neat little display piece. And I do want to point out that the wheels actually don't move whatsoever. It really is just a piece that you sit on your shelf. And the same thing can be said about the Arrowplane, which comes on a black display base, so it's clearly designed to be popped on a shelf next to your collector figures. Each one of the comic accurate bows, one belonging to Green Arrow and one belonging to Speedy, are both strung with a little piece of very thin fishing line. Each of the 4 arrows is painted and sculpted neatly enough, although it would have been kind of cool to see a regular arrow in the mix as well. He comes with a handcuff arrow, and I gotta tell you, if you can handcuff somebody by shooting an arrow at him that has handcuffs on the end, you are the greatest archer that ever lived. He comes with this arrow with presumably a large blade on the end. I'm not even familiar with this one, but he comes with it. He comes with an explosive tipped arrow. I can only assume that that's what this one is. And arguably the most popular arrow in Green Arrow's arsenal, the boxing glove arrow. Now, although it's safe to say, I don't think that these figures have near the amount of articulation or detail that makes them comparable to today's adult collectible action figures, they're still definitely very striking looking. And for the time, they were amongst the best Green Arrow and Speedy action figures ever made. Actually, I think that this was the only 6-inch scale Speedy action figure ever made. Now, first putting Green Arrow under the slow motion spotlight of a toe-to-head shot, you can see that this figure really does have a very striking green and red color combination, and looks very much like that classic Green Arrow from way back when. The sculpted details and muscular stature of this figure absolutely match what Green Arrow looked like at the time that this figure is based off of. You could tell that the sculptors at DC Direct spared no expense at making sure they got the facial structure, the domino mask, heck, even the little red feather in his Robin Hood hat down pat. It looks perfect. And the same thing can be said for Speedy. The detail work and muscular stature of the lad underneath his red tunic and suit actually matches how he looked back in the day. His bright yellow hat and gloves contrast perfectly with the red tone they chose for his tunic and pants. The head sculpt for Speedy, again, just like Green Arrow, is incredibly comic accurate. I feel like I'm looking at an old school Green Arrow comic book. The facial structure, the domino mask, the skin tone all looks pretty much spot on, as well as that little tiny feather in his yellow Robin Hood cap. Now, one area that these classic DC Direct figures usually lack in is in the posability aspect. You can see here that the Green Arrow, when I pull him up close to the camera, his head is just on a simple peg. And that was, that was the times. The shoulders are on a ball peg right there, and they can go up and out quite a bit, but they want to pop off. So there is definitely a limited range of movement there. There is no kind of swivel whatsoever at the sleeve or at the glove here. No swivel. You have your single jointed elbow, and that is it. The waist itself doesn't even turn with this figure. And you would think that that's what they would want to do, but it doesn't. The groin itself doesn't have a lot of articulation because his tunic gets in the way. And the knees of the figure Although they're single jointed, there's a lot of articulation back that way, but if you don't have the accompanying articulation at the top of the leg, it makes this kind of useless. Add on top of that, no posability in the ankles, that when you go to stand this figure up, he frequently wants to fall down because he's really hard to balance. You have to kind of put one foot forward and really jury-rig this figure to get him to stand up. With Red Arrow, it's not quite as bad as that. You can get him to stand up pretty easy without him falling over, because the way that his legs and feet have been formed, it definitely makes more sense. However, he still only has those limited ball joints in the shoulders, no rotation here at the top of the arm, nothing at the glove, single jointed elbows, and as you can see here, he's got a painted shut piece of articulation, and these old school DC oh, I was lucky. It didn't break. Sometimes they break when you try to move their articulation points because they had the really weak pegs. He's got the same groin as Green Arrow. He's got pretty much the same knees as Green Arrow and no ankles, no turning, no rotating, and the head is on a regular old peg. So these are very basically articulated action figures, only with the added articulation of shoulders that can go straight up. They're not just a simple swivel shoulder. And he fell over. Stand up, boy. Now, when we look at this Green Arrow figure in comparison to some others, in this case, the DC Universe Classics, and then the second DC Universe Classics version, no matter how much Green Arrow's uniform has changed over the years, it's always kept a look that is reminiscent to the classic Robin Hood. The Mezco 1/12 Collective, DC Icons Green Arrow Longbow, Justice League Action, and the little itty-bitty Mattel Crisis figures, here's a comparison with all these figures. As for good old Roy Harper's Speedy, or Arsenal, or Red Arrow, depending how you know him, these are the only ones that I currently have to compare him to. DC Collectibles New 52, and a modified version of the DC Universe Classics. And just like the Green Arrow, you can really see exactly how much his uniform has changed over the years. So now that we've had a chance to look at the DC Direct Deluxe Green Arrow and Speedy action figures with all of their accessories, one thing is for certain. The classic DC Direct box sets will always have a special place in my adult collector heart. They come from a time when DC was starting to make their own action figures rather than licensing out the rights to companies like Hasbro, Toy Biz, and Kenner. And even though Mattel would go on to be granted a master license to make pretty much any character they wanted to from the DC Comics library, DC Direct would still go on to make action figures based on their famous properties, usually based specifically on certain artists' work and storylines. These classic DC Direct Deluxe box sets are such a piece of action figure history to me that I likely won't stop until I've collected absolutely every single one of them. I don't have them all yet, but I'm halfway there. Anyway guys, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. If you liked the video, please leave a like on it. Leave any comments you have down in the comments section below. If you want to see more of my hands, sometimes my face show up in your inbox, hit the red subscribe button. If you do, remember to ding the bell so that you get notified of new videos, and I'll see you with the next one. Have an awesome day, super friends, and take care.